Welcome to Echelon Orchid. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and on episode 124, we are going to be talking about how to be creative and reproduce success, the effective work schedules, why Google gets it wrong, and controlling the cult of modern business. Joining me as a co-host for tonight is the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. I hope you enjoy the show. Please like, subscribe, and leave a few comments, positive or negative. And either way, be specific in the comments. Have a great day, and please enjoy. Hey, welcome to Echelon Orchid. We've got a little bit different of a format going on here. Welcome back, the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. What's going on, ninja?
Oh, man, it's great to be back on after a few weeks.
Dude, I got to tell you. So we had this executive call this week. And in there, I take a little bit of pride in this, in that the individual that led the session, I feel like I've been kind of coaching her up for a little bit and convinced her to, go back and do her MBA. Wasn't at Michigan. I tried to convince her to go to Michigan. She didn't do it. She went to Villanova, and I'm like, hey, it's a top 500 school.
Yeah,
actually, I think it's top 20. It's pretty good school. Like, yeah. I'm not kidding. So she but and damn it, I owe her a bottle of wine. Because Villanova played Michigan in the NCAA tournament, and I lost. Villanova was ranked way higher, but whatever. She ran an amazing session today on creativity, and I'm reminded of this mainly because of how your face looks right now. Kind of. So it was I can't remember which particular TED Talk it was, but it was a TED Talk on basically, anyone can be creative, and I'm going to teach you how to draw cartoons. And so literally your face makeup looks kind of like a cartoon.
I'm a little bit of a caricature. That's fair.
Right. But I only reminded because like your mustache, the way one of the characters we had to do, and the glasses, I'm like, the only difference was they made it the person look more like Albert Einstein. I'm like, all right, we just got to get you some Albert Einstein like hair going on that case. And it was like, this could be Jason in another like 30 years. But it was quite fun. So she got everyone involved. Not everyone truly participated. I don't believe. Maybe they did. But the idea was, all right, you're going to go through this 17-minute TED Talk and do the drawings and then submit them to everyone. Like, just let everyone see. It was really interesting. A couple of things that were interesting in this. One, all of them are very similar. But two, this is very important I believe, from a leadership perspective. Many things that you do that are going to be successful can rinse and repeat. You only have to tweak a piece. That becomes a completely different piece of art or creativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing exercise. I truly enjoyed it. Because I think out of that, I think there was like 10 different like cartoon like characters we created, and they all had the basic same principles. And poke fun at you a little bit there, not that you're not used to that. I mean, the ribbon kind of goes back and forth, right? But it was just interesting because, someone else, actually it was my boss, said, well, this was my character of you, Dan. Like, he kind of did it up. He did the mustache, of course, the bald head, the glasses. And I'm like, yeah, I dig that. I'm like, but as some of these things were going on, I was really kind of maybe focused a little bit on, like, my last episode has to do with some bullying. But as part of that, I was watching Jocko's podcast on the Will Smith, Chris Rock. There was something very important that I think he said in this case, in that one, which I actually do kind of agree with this. I've changed a little bit based on what Jocko said, which makes a lot of sense. In that maybe the better response, like, look, one, you're a celebrity, you're there, you're a multi-millionaire, if not 100-millionaire. Maybe perhaps, you kind of knew what was going to be going on. You should just you should be taking it. Like, you're there to be roasted. So,
I mean, you're sitting in the front row at a comedy show.
You kind of know what's going to go on. But he kind of talked about some stuff. Hey, look, you need to check some people sometimes. Hey, it was a slap. It wasn't a punch. Hey, and he talked about being in a team, team guy. And, he was definitely a team guy. Stuff happens. And so, all right, you got checked. Now is it on or what? But he broke down some other things. But what I really liked in this aspect was, Will Smith's a much bigger guy than Chris Rock. And did he really need to do that? Now, hey, look, this, and he made a big distinction between being at a comedy show versus you're out with your wife. Like, they're at a comedy show. And he basically looked at this as that Will Smith was weak. In that he is in a much more superior position. And when you're in a superior position, you've got to be like a duck and let that water roll off your back. Like, there's nothing to gain. That was an interesting take, because my immediate reaction was, because look, I mean, you know this, and I've talked about it on the show. One of the big reasons why I continue to shave my head is, stress brings on alopecia to me at this point. It started happening when I was like maybe 36, quite heavily. Actually, it was a little bit later. It was during the doctorate program. Chunks of my hair would start falling out, right? And so I get it. It's much more socially, I believe, it's much more socially acceptable for a man just go ahead and shave their head. No one thinks anything of it. Not necessarily for a woman. Not necessarily. Maybe, like, to me, I'm like that. Your appearance is a depreciating asset, regardless. And I want to kind of get to know who you are on the inside. But I don't know that everyone feels that way.
Man, it's a complex event. Here's the one thing that I think about with that situation that I don't know that I've heard anybody talk about it. That doesn't mean everybody hasn't, because it's not like I'm looking in the news to find it, to be fair. But most of what I saw revolved around, was he right to slap him? Was Chris Rock right to not press charges? The whole domestic situation between Will and Jada, and that's what all this, to me, distraction. A man made a poor decision on an impulse, and it's not a normal reaction. And so I can't imagine somebody like Will Smith, based on his track record of acting in public, right, is in a good frame of mind in that moment to make that impulsive decision, which makes me feel bad for him. I'm not saying what he did was right. I'm actively avoiding judging it, because what I think about the most is, man, if I were him and I did that, I would hope that at some point somebody would come and ask me if I was okay. Okay, not because of what I did, but am I mentally okay because I made an impulsively bad decision that's out of character, right?
Yeah, something else is going on.
Right. Because it's not normal. I mean, it's clearly not normal.
I mean, all right. So this is another part of this, and I don't think too many people have really picked up on this. Maybe in that split moment, Chris Rock is, a lyrical genius, basically, right? I mean, I don't know if lyrical is the right word, but
he's a professional comedian. He's good with words, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which when you're that good with words, you're very, very intelligent. I don't know any comedian that's not super intelligent. I think in that split moment, like I mean, I'd be kind of talking to Chris Rock, like, look, when someone's walking up on you, you don't know what's going on. Like, why is your hands not up? Why are you not backing away a little bit? I don't know. Maybe he was, I mean, he wasn't expecting anything, but even though you don't like this whole aspect of emotional intelligence, so we'll say situational awareness of the moment, in that split moment, he turned it around and went, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Like, he didn't escalate it.
Right.
He maybe in that moment went, wow, maybe Will Smith's going through some things that I don't know about. And that, I gotta say, to me, my like, reflecting on this a little bit more, what a brave person. What a very empathetic person. I never thought that way of Chris Rock. Like, he's a funny guy. Like, there's no question about that. But outside of some of his movies and his comedy shows, I didn't get to see this part. Like, he was very quick, in my mind, to at least believe he saw something that maybe the rest of us didn't. That split second.
Yeah, well, I mean, he clearly didn't choose to fight back, so he didn't have a fight response. He didn't freeze, or if he did, not for long. And he didn't seem fearful because he was able to quickly gather himself and carry on and actually be quite funny. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, man. Part of my point too, we've talked about this in the past, is that part of what we're going through as a culture and a society hinges on quick judgments of things and people. And that's probably one of the few things I would take a clear stance, and say that I'm not a fan of. Because the narratives instantly started in on, it's because of this, it's because of that, this, that. What about the past 10 years of their relationship? And look, man, I know they made some of it public. I have no idea because I didn't watch those piece of shit shows either, because I'm not into it and I have better things to do. But that's my personal choice, right? But we're so quick as a society, right, to jump on bandwagons and tribes and judge the situation and these people for what was, dude, I mean, did it even last 10 seconds in total? Like, 10 seconds out of 24 hours, and suddenly everybody's a fucking marriage counseling expert, and they've deduced why Will did that. Come on, man. I can't tell you, I wouldn't do it if I was sitting there. And I've been in the first row of comedy clubs and gotten made fun of. That doesn't mean I wouldn't react that way. I have no idea. I wasn't sitting there.
Great point. Don't know. I don't want to even pretend to know what's going on with their marriage. I actually don't even think it matters.
Ain't none of my business.
It's none of my business. I think the part that I kind of fault Will Smith and Jada, in that everything is fair game at these award shows. It is a roast. You know that going in, you know the game rules. If you didn't want to be a part of it, don't go. Like, I feel like it's implied consent going to a comedy show, award show like this. You're gonna get roasted. And if you can't handle it, which I don't understand why they can't, it's literally millionaires making fun of millionaires. They're all equal in my mind. Like, they're on the same playing field. They've all got, like, 3 commas in their checking account.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of social commentary to make. I was taken aback by how normal it continued on after the fact, to the point where, like, it was just a few minutes later he got up and won an award. Like, and I think within our friend circle, I'm the only person that's lived there and worked in Hollywood on films, or in film. And man, that really reminded me a lot of what I didn't like about the limited time I spent there, is because this is the problem. I think Joe Rogan said this once, or somebody in that circle did. The problem with actors is you don't know when they're not acting. Like, really, who is the person? And that gets weird, man. That gets weird, especially when you're that famous and you don't have people around you that will tell you when you're out of line, because then you become that person that gets lost in your method, like Daniel Day-Lewis reportedly does sometimes, right?
Sure.
Or Shia LaBeouf or what the fuck ever, right? It's common enough that it happens, and if you don't have people around checking you and telling you the truth that you can depend on, again, man, I'm not excusing it. I'm not a fan of punching people for no reason. Like, I just don't want to live in a society where that's normal. I'm not saying there's never a cause to do it, but I don't think I want to live in a society where if somebody cracks a joke, which I'm not judging the quality of the joke, right? That the reaction is to go hit them. Like, when you're in that situation.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference in that. I think this is the part. There was an implied consent of what could happen. You kind of knew by, so to speak, reading the end user license agreement that this could happen. And then, okay, so he reacted. And I don't know that it was out of line. I'm not here to judge that part. Actually, what I want to celebrate, at least in a way, I felt Chris Rock's response was amazing.
It was actually a good example of leadership, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he could have. I mean, here's the thing. Like, Chris Rock's a small dude. He could be roasting Will Smith for eternity. He just literally he had no idea what was going on. He wasn't expecting anything. Got slapped. Barely moved.
Yeah. I mean, well, he clearly has a good chin.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm ready to sign him up for the UFC. Let's get it on. But those are just the two pieces. Now, I'm gonna pivot this back into the original aspect of what we got going on in the world. And I got to tell you, I think Google's getting it wrong again in this particular case. I love Google. There is no mistake as to how much I love Google products, everything about Google. But you know what? You've got the former CEO saying everyone's got to come back into the office. How are we going to teach these young managers that are between the ages of 25 and 34 on how to appropriately be able to manage people if they're not in my brick and mortar infrastructure? Hey, newsflash, dude. People 25 to 34, they already know how to manage people that are not in brick and mortar infrastructure. Stop trying to take your preference and inflict that preference on people who don't have that. Manage to performance. Manage the performance, manage the expectations. If you can't do that, maybe it's time for you to get out of the game and let the next generation step up and kick butt and do what businesses are supposed to do, provide stockholder value.
So you can see the screen lighting up because I had to switch over to a tab that doesn't have dark mode. I'll quote ex-Google CEO Eric Schmidt on why in-office work is better. Quote, "I don't know how you build great management virtually." Well, Eric, explain why your stock doubled in value over the COVID pandemic when we were 100% work from home. Is it because your management sucks and they got removed and so people could actually be productive and do good shit? Or because they sorted themselves out and the managers and the people that they're managing are actually more productive in that environment because they weren't in a brick and mortar facility. So they figured it out. Just because you can't doesn't mean they can't.
You like that segue? I mean, we talked about this on the pre-show a little bit, but you mentioned something a little bit right there that was even more pointed from the pre-show. Stock price speaks for itself, right? But I think there's a piece there that you really hit on that we didn't talk about in the pre-show, and that is maybe perhaps because we remove this in-office stuff, you now remove the barriers so people could actually get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, like, you and I have talked about meetings, right? And I was explaining something to a junior colleague the other day. I actually enjoy meetings. I like talking to people, even though I'm an introvert mostly, right? What I don't like, which is why I don't default to meetings, is all the unnecessary bullshit that comes before and after. That's what I don't like. And so if you have a culture because of leadership where that doesn't happen, then dude, I'll take a couple meetings every day. It's not a problem because they're productive in and of themselves, right? But you and I both have been in a lot of places where that's not true. And the cost of those bookended distractions with the meta bookended distractions of stopping what I'm doing to prepare to get distracted and then getting back from the distraction, my day's done. I had a meeting last Friday that started at 8:30 in the morning, which is fucking criminal. Now keep in mind, I say that people are like, oh, you should just get up earlier. I was up at 4:30 because I did a race. So I was well awake and I'd already been productive. I just don't want to have a meeting at 8:30. And I don't think it's productive for people. To my point, we show up and it's okay, let's sit here for a half hour and wait for everybody to show up. Wrong. Start on time or don't start. Let's go. Everybody shows up. We sit for another half hour while people bumblefuck around trying to figure out, are we actually going to follow the agenda or not? And then we get into the meeting. And by the way, what was also criminal, we've talked about this several weeks ago, if you didn't turn your camera on, they kicked you out. So of course I turned my camera off just to see what would happen. I got an email telling me to turn it back on. So I did because now I wanted to see what was going on. And as you might guess, at least 3/4 of the people for the next 45 minutes. Now, by the way, if you're keeping track, we're like at almost 2.5 hours now, and we're not even doing anything. 3/4 of the people are face down doing something other than paying attention because there's nothing to pay attention to. And so I'll finish this by saying we finished, it's like 3 hours, dude. And I'm done. I'm done for the day. I'm exhausted. I'm burned out. It's tedious and it was torture.
So what in your reasoning is an 8:30 in the morning meeting torture?
For the same reason it's bad to have kids go to school at 8:30 in the morning. Most people aren't prepared to be productive that early in the morning. And so as a consequence, what happens is you actually don't get anything done for another half hour. So why not just make it 9 a.m.? Like, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, I'm asking.
That's part of it. But
And I tend to agree. But this is where things like why I love my Aura ring so much. It's taking track of all of my biorhythms and tells me the predicted best time for me to go to sleep and the best time for me to wake up. Now, for me, it's prediction of when I should wake up and when I do wake up. Well, it's not off too much, I wouldn't say. It's saying that my ideal like wake time is between like 7 and 7:15. I tend to wake up earlier than that, but that's also because I'm very restless and a sleeper. I get some decent quality sleep now that I've been paying attention to it. But if more companies paid attention to that aspect, hey, what's getting everyone in an organization, $300 Aura ring it's in an executive position that has to deal with making decisions, get them this, take the actual metrics and the data, then you'll figure out. Because look, you, in my opinion, and from what the research that I've read, and maybe you know a little bit more to me than this, is that from the time you wake up to the time you should actually be productive is 90 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's just some of the 90 minutes. So this would actually be very close. If for me it's around 7:15, 90 minutes from then is 9:00.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too, right? Okay. So let's say most people take lunch at noon, high 12, right? Okay. Well, what do you think starts happening at 11? People start thinking, oh, it's almost time for lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens at 1? Everybody's like, man, I'm still full for lunch. This is why I also think it's criminal to have meetings between the hours of, let's say, 10:45 and 1:45. Nobody's paying attention. What are you doing?
Well, this gets back into the whole aspect of, and we've talked about this, when are the reasons like why people in a 40-hour work week really, if you are lucky, if you get 25 hours of productivity, lucky if you get that. I would say most are probably getting closer to 20 hours of productivity.
Right. Right. And it's because of simple things like this, man. It's simple things like this. Dude, it's the same reason. It's the exact same reason why I will never, ever schedule myself for surgery on a Monday or a Friday. On Monday, I'm not going to say all, but doctors tend to be people and go out on the weekend. I don't want a tired surgeon. I want a surgeon at his best. So I'm booking Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I don't want surgery on a Friday because he's a person and he just wants to get into the weekend and enjoy his life, which I understand. I'm not begrudging people. Same thing if I have to go to court. I ain't booking court around lunchtime. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And that's really my point, is that if you just step back and think about it as a human being, instead of cramming shit in like you're playing Tetris on Outlook, you know what I mean? Like, if to me, it all stands the reason if you just step back and think about it on what's best for most people.
Well, and this is a big reason why when we go back to your 8:30 meeting time frame. Let's say you want people to come back into the office, which I think is more criminal than having a meeting at 8:30.
I would agree.
Right. But let's take for preference that maybe you have a hybrid work environment. Maybe you're in a position to where there are positions that need to be in person today because the robotics is not cheap enough to deploy everywhere to do those other things, and then you could control the robotics remotely. Robotics would still be much cheaper, in my opinion, soon than it would be to build these big, huge buildings and office spaces. But I haven't gotten to that point to prove. With that being said, I did for me, and yeah, I get up early. I get up early. I don't set an alarm. It's just when I get up. But the data tells me I should be getting up between 7 and 7:15. Now, thankfully, I'm dealing with some other stuff, so that way I can kind of get it earlier. I want to be up earlier and earlier and earlier so I can get things done and be productive before I got to deal with people who are not productive because they want to have a meeting at 8:30 when most people do need to probably get up sometime between 7 and 8, if I had to imagine, unless you're a night owl. And if you're a night owl, you're not getting up until 11 o'clock because you're working. And this all comes back to biology and how we evolved as a species. You needed people that were going to be night owls because they needed to protect the walls for when the lions and tigers and bears were going to try and hunt you. You needed people that were able to stay up at night to protect the villages. So I get it. So do the metrics. So that means if someone wants to get up between 7 and 7:15 and you work in a high metropolitan area, it's going to take you, let's say you're amazing at getting ready in the morning and you're 30 minutes. So that means you're out the door at 7:45. The average commute in high metropolitan areas, I think, is an hour and 15 minutes. Which means you're at 9:15 when you walk into the building. If my math is correct, I was just doing it quickly off the top. When you just walk in the building, you put your stuff down, you turn on the PC. It's Windows, so you know there's going to be an update at some point. So you're going to be taking forever. Whereas if you just went to Chromebook and had VDI, you'd be on point pretty quickly. So you turn on that computer, you go and get your coffee, you come back, it's 9:30. So what I say to you, Ninja, 9 o'clock is still too early. If the meeting's before 9:30, you're no bueno. It's not happening.
So check this out.
I'm a half hour ahead of you, or beyond you.
I would call 8:30 a felony, and I would call 9 o'clock a class 1 misdemeanor.
Yeah.
It's just a tad less severe. check this out. I got some data for us.
Yep. What do you got?
Roughly, now this is not broken down by profession, so this is not just white collar. Okay, this is all on average working adult Americans. Less than half wake up by 7:30. It's about 45, 46%. So less than half of us are awake by 7:30.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Right. That goes right back to what we're saying. So less than 50% of your workforce wants to get up before 7:30. I mean, not even one. It's not ideal for them to be up before 7:30 in the morning if they're going to be productive. And look, I'm going to say right now, alarm clocks are in general are criminal. It's not the way we're meant to get up.
You know, they're one of the leading causes of death in elderly people.
It's what is it? It causes you to be neurotic.
Heart attacks.
Yeah. It's not meant. The only time I set an alarm, the only time, and I know it and it's cognizant of it, is when I know I need to be up at a time that is earlier than what I normally would wake up naturally. That's it. Because I'm going to catch a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't normally get up at 4:30 in the morning. I tend to wake up sometime between 5 and 6. That's my average. And I enjoy that. I get some time to do what I need to do. I am trying to train myself to be up like before 5 because I want to do the jiu-jitsu class at 5:30 in the morning, as well as I want to be able to do 2 classes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then do the regular Monday, Wednesday, Friday class as well. I mean, that's the reason. But on those other days, I still want to get up so I can do other things.
Right. You know what I like. I most days, and by most I mean like 9.5 out of 10 days on average. By the time most people will be rolling into the office, I've already written for several hours and more than likely gotten a full cycling workout. That's 2 major milestones for my own personal development and mental health that are done before I have to actually start my day.
And I think that is some of the most healthiest things that people can do. I continue to coach my team. I tend to coach people that are some of my clients at this point. If you are not doing things to personally develop yourself, you will suffer professionally. And if you are not doing things to professionally develop yourself, you are also going to suffer on the other side. They're joined. So this is why I do jiu-jitsu. This is why I do the show. I mean, it's a lot largely. I mean, actually, I would say the show here that we do is kind of a mutual benefit in my personal and business development.
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of a mutual thing. But I'm doing things that are constantly evolving my professional acumen. So, we talked about this on the pre-show, and I forgot to announce it in the last couple of episodes, but I've officially signed up for an executive coaching certification through the Positive Intelligence folks. I really enjoyed the program. I had on, one of their coaches. I think her name was, and I apologize. I think it was Leisha Davidovitz. I think it's what her name was. I don't have it right off. I mean, this is all off the cuff, as she was a guest that kind of turned me on to Shirzad. He's okay. He teaches at Stanford in their business program. I mean, it's a decent school, I guess. I mean, it's no Michigan, but I mean, it's decent. I really enjoyed his book. I mean, he's combining some things with neuroscience and psychology. So there's some things here that I really, really enjoy. And it just makes tremendous sense when you tell someone your biggest strength is actually also your biggest weakness.
Yeah.
let's say, I'll give you a great example for those that may be saying, nah, that can't be true. Let's say you are an amazing collaborator. You want to bring people in. Well, at what point does that turn into a weakness? Well, the weakness is you fail to make a decision because you always want to bring more people in to get more voices heard at a certain point in time. Now, and here's the way you wish you can do this for those people that are huge collaborators. Set a date. I'm going to collaborate with as many people. Send me all your information. Send me all your everything you can think of. But Friday at 5 p.m., I'm making the decision, and that's what we're going with.
Yep. Yeah. See, and I think too many people, if we can spin off this little leadership conversation for a minute, to me, and you're an example of this, good leaders do that because you need the consensus, but at some point, you're ultimately responsible for the decision, and you need to make the decision so you can move forward with whatever you're doing, right? And the bad leaders I've been around do one of the opposites on an extreme. Either they try to govern only through consensus, which means nothing ever gets decided or done, or they only dictate and never take input, which is just as bad. It's just the polar extreme opposite.
You know, I think I do a very good job of considering other people's input. However, that does not mean that I am going to act upon everyone's input. I will consider it to see, is there something that they have stated that I missed? Is that a blind spot? And I feel like I do this very well. And I mean, you've known me now for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years here this summer. So you tell me, is that something you see, or am I just completely off in la la land?
No, I think you do it, and I think over the years you've gotten better at doing it. I wouldn't say that you were ever uncomfortable doing it, but I think your ability to implement that in a way that people buy into has increased, which I think is a positive thing. And I think I can say that as a personal friend because I've observed you as a personal friend doing it, and I've worked for you with you, and I've seen you do it. So like, I get kind of both sides of it.
Well, which is also a rarity.
Yeah.
I mean, think about think about how many people we have in our lives that can only be professional and can only be personal. Rarely do they mix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest.
I think it's a thing, man. I just think it's a thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I just think it's a thing.
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely a thing.
I mean, for the record, I thought TK was like that too. The limited exposure I had working with him. I think he's very people oriented. At least he was right at Summit Circle. I don't know what he's like now because I haven't worked with him in a long time. But in our personal interactions, he certainly seems like that. I don't know that I would say that are the people that I got exposed to at the credit union in South Bend. They didn't strike me as people that ever really wanted to make a decision, unless it was to criticize me for wearing jeans when I got off the fucking plane. But that was their level of concern. That tells you a lot, right? Like, I get it, but come on, dude. Really? Okay.
Well, one is the genre in which they operate.
It's the culture,
right?
Yeah.
So there's that piece of it. The other piece is this gets back into many of the conversations we've been having, whether it be a work from home, whether it be a diversity, equity, inclusion aspect. I think it was the CEO for General Motors, is it Mary? Is it Barra? Am I saying her name right?
It sounds close. Of General Motors, you said?
Yeah. I think it's Mary Barra. I hope I said her name right. Okay.
Barra, Barra.
So her whole aspect on dress code is this. It's 2 words. Dress appropriately.
Yeah.
If you're in front of customers and clients, you dress a certain way. If you're not, you dress a certain way. So in this particular aspect, you are in a back office environment. You're not meeting with, in this case, our direct customer. And I'm telling you as the customer, dude, I don't do whatever. So I don't care if you wear jeans. Like, I'm telling you, like, do whatever. So for those that say those kind of things, says that they are just trying to put their thumb on you because they want to control you and they don't care about your output.
Well, listen, man, I would never run a company based on a dress code, but that's my personal choice, and that's the type of company I would have. I understand why other places have it. I don't have to agree with it. Fine. My point was, I just got off the fucking plane, and I walked there, if you remember right. I walked there. Because it was so close, dude. There's no point getting an Uber. I got there by the time the Uber would have showed up. But my point is to, because it was within minutes, man. I wasn't there more than like 5 minutes before somebody came into your office and said something. I remember it distinctly because it stood out to me as, oh, that's the type of culture this is. Okay.
It's toxic. Okay. It's toxic culture.
Yeah.
Look, there's, again, like I said, you're in front of a client, a customer. You want to kind of, at least in a way, again, dress appropriately. Like, I would never condone someone that's going in to be as a business consultant wearing t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. Just okay, but you're kind of going super casual. Put on whatever your uniform is, right? It's certainly not. Okay, if you're going in maybe to a surfing company, maybe that's appropriate. But if you're not, okay, maybe wear some type of button down. I don't even care about the jeans. Like jeans today, as long as they're not ripped, and you're going in front of a customer, hey, put on the button down, get jeans, throw on a sport coat. Look respectful. Actually, that's probably the best thing. Be respectful.
Yeah. See, I think that's a good way to say it because, okay, so here's another example. At University of Maryland, I've been essentially serving as the head coach for the esports team because they're trying to set up an actual, okay? And so I wanted to write a code of conduct for the team because it's remote and I want to make sure my expectations are codified and clearly articulated. And it's not something you forget because you weren't there on Discord that night I said it, right? And I made it really straightforward and simple. 1 page, last bullet point. Don't be a jerk. If you don't know if you're being a jerk, you're probably being a jerk. And if you can't tell, come talk to me. Real simple rule, dude. Super simple. And it leaves me open to be able to navigate that and make decisions as a leader. I don't want to be in rule jail. So what does the administration do? They send it to legal. And legal's like, oh, you can't use the word jerk. I can't. I did. What do you mean I can't? What you're saying is you want to prove it if it's in there. So what do you want me to say? Because to me, it's a really simple rule. How would you say it? I'm still waiting. And that's fair. Hey, man, look, if you want to do it that way, do it that way. Just give it back to me when you're done. That's fine. I think it should be a simple rule.
Well, I think what they're probably going to, or if it was me, I get it, even though I don't agree with it. I would say the same exact thing, but I would just change the word out from jerk to professional. If you can't be professional, then to go on that side of it is the way I would. Fine, like don't be a jerk. Hey, be professional. If you don't know if you're being professional, then come talk to me. But I prefer, in this case, don't be a jerk.
I think everybody that's not a jerk by nature understands what being a jerk is. It's intuitive. I'm not sure I understand what being professional always means. And I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm being serious, which is why I didn't use a word like that. I think in certain contexts it becomes clear. But you're talking back to your point about culture and place and time and
Yeah.
being
Let me
respectful,
think
which
about
is a great way to phrase it. This is an esports team.
How can we say this from an esports team? I get it. Trying to give you a different way that can that I
And
still
I'm
like
not saying find a different
I still
word.
prefer the word jerk in this case. Like, don't be a jerk. Um,
And I'm not saying professional's bad. Maybe that's what they're going to come back with, and that's fine. I'm not interested in arguing about it. It's a detail that's meaningless in the scope of what's trying to be done, right?
yeah,
What
and this just
what
gets that
bothers me about it?
wordsmithing that's so bad. Like, you could
Well,
wordsmith
the thing
everything to
that
death.
bothers me about it is because of this culture of, oh, you can't say that. Really? I mean, I just did. But because of that culture, that's what they're going to do to justify their existence in the organization. Now that's going to take an extra 3 weeks.
Well, and this is what's interesting about this to me. What is offensive about saying "don't be a jerk"?
They didn't say it was offensive.
Then
To
what's
be
the
fair,
then what's what do you perceive, or did they say what the legal ramifications are of using the word jerk?
they didn't articulate any reason. They just,
Then don't lie. So it's a preference.
I was just going to say, I think the fair way to paraphrase their position is that they just don't think you can say it, which means they don't like it. Well, okay, but I'm not talking to you. Like I didn't even involve you. Somebody else did.
It's a code of conduct, right? That's what you're asking for, a code of conduct. So, um, I don't know. It's what is the terms they use in some of the professional sports. Um, Let me think if I can think of the words.
I mean, I could have said rightfully, don't be an asshole.
So yeah, I mean, they would probably have the same thing, but actions detrimental to the club.
Yourself and others. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's it. Actions detrimental to others, i.e., don't be a jerk. That's how you can say it. Actions detrimental to the esports club, i.e., don't be a jerk. That I think that's the language they kind of use in the sports contracts. Oh,
Right.
you're being fined because your actions were detrimental to the league.
Yeah. Hey, and fair, man. They have their process. They have their culture. I learned a long time ago that it's folly to think you're going to butt up against it and change it because it doesn't need change. That's fine. But this is the thing, though. This is my position. I'll play ball. That's fine. I'm not judging it. I'm not upset. It's not. I don't feel like I'm being personally attacked. However, if you don't like it, it's your responsibility to change it to what you're comfortable with. I'm not changing it. So if you want to change, you change it, and I'll use it. Right? I'm not going to like sneak around and change it. But dude, now the action's on you. So if you don't want to be responsible and you don't want to change it, then you better be fine with it.
I get it.
I think that's fair. I don't think you have a right to cause other people work because of your personal preference.
Well, I think that's a big thing. Like, you're not in this particular example. There is no such thing as a protected class called jerk.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
It's not someone over 40. It's not about their skin color, their sexual preference, how they identify, amongst all of the other things that make those protected classes up. A jerk, not a protected class.
I mean, you can fire somebody for being a jerk
Yeah.
because
I
their
mean,
behavior is detrimental to the brand.
it just depends on the state you live in.
I mean, in most states, you can fire somebody for fuck all reason.
Well, I mean, yes, most are, but there are some that they say employment at will, but it's really not employment at will. Like, I
Well, you
mean,
mean like California?
I mean, I don't know all the different states' laws. I mean, there are just
Calif-
things. I mean, there's a
California,
lot.
California's an at-will state, but the board, this board of the bureau, or Department of Labor, I think it's the Department of Labor, it's called at the state level, is well renowned for being very pro worker, very pro. Um, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's just one of the things California, especially in Southern California, is known for. But neither here nor there. My point was about culture, and it's interesting how people have these reactions like Will Smith did, right? And they lose track of this bigger picture of themselves as participating in leadership in this microcosm of society, let alone society writ large. But they also lose track of their place in the overall leadership structure and hierarchy.
I can see that. I mean, there's, outside of this particular incident, Will Smith had a very good reputation, not only in the industry, but as an individual in society. But we tend to always judge people based upon their weakest moments rather than their best moments. Like we always seem to want to tear people down. Oh, see that person, they weren't that good.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
You know, I mean, look, I've had many weak moments in my life. I'm human. I'm fallible. I hope people will judge me about what I do next, not by what I've just done. I mean, because I'm going to make mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. If you think you haven't made a mistake, and actually, Tom, who's been on the show, Tom Caretzi, he said, someone asked him, would he do anything different? He said, no. I feel like I've done a pretty good job, but if I had done anything different, I would have just ended up with a different problem to solve. So if I could go back, I could solve those same problems faster.
Right.
I mean, how astute. I never thought of it that way. Like, I would have thought, all right, I made a mistake. I would have done this. That would have led to just different mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, man, like the thing that stands out to me, like I was saying a little bit earlier, like when I had that moment at Capitol, right, which landed me in exile for a couple of years, which was wrong. There's no argument about it, man.
What was wrong?
The way I yelled at Helen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the thing I took issue with, I think I had a reason to take issue with. How I expressed my issue was, to say it was inappropriate is an understatement. However, after the fact, and I was thinking about this not too long ago, and I actually said it to her. All I wish is that when the dust settled, somebody would have come up to me and asked me if I was okay, because I wasn't, and that's why I lashed out. It was just an opportunity.
Well, all right. So that's not entirely true.
What do you mean?
Because I did ask you, hey, you good? You're right. I mean, we talked all the time, right? So you did have someone.
Let me restate. Somebody at the school.
Yeah, true. Fair.
And to be more specific, somebody that was in that room, because there was more than just me and her.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I only heard about it, and I just, we talked, so I kind of knew. And hey, we, like I said, if we judge our people based on their weakest moments, then would we ever have friends, colleagues? We all get to, I think I learned this piece from Gopi, and I really enjoy this part of what he had said. We all deserve a chance to fail. We all deserve a chance to redeem.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's this baseball and you get 3 strikes and you're out.
And not all fuck ups are equal, man. I mean, some things are so egregious you got to go, despite what I feel about you.
Yeah,
sure. It's situational, right? I mean, and that's like I was saying. That's how I feel about Will Smith. And the thing is not only do we do it to each other at like the level you and I are at, we dogpile, or we have a tendency to at a level of society. But it's particularly vicious when you have somebody that has been put so high on a pedestal with their fame. Man, that brings all the piranhas out, all of them. And what, like suddenly you don't think the dude's human just because he has a shit ton of money and he's in all kinds of films? Like he's not a human being. He doesn't have feelings. He doesn't deserve a chance at redemption. I've said this multiple times on this show, right? That's the single biggest thing I don't like about cancel culture. I'm not saying people don't deserve consequences. Everybody has consequences for their behavior. I got put in exile for 2 years. That wasn't fun. It wasn't fun, dude.
Hey, just so you know, I didn't put you in exile for 2 years.
No, man. You didn't. I did it to myself, clearly.
No, no, I think you're being a little bit like, all right, so there's two sides to that. Those that you reported to could have talked with you as well and reached out to try to reconcile things sooner.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that 2 years is not 100% on you. I would say at most 70%.
Okay. I'm just taking responsibility for my action, which
and absolutely. But you're going through that 70%. But as a leader on that other side,
sure, that's fair.
Any of them could have reached out to try to make things copacetic sooner.
Yeah,
that's why I say at most it's 70. Like, look, which is an overwhelming majority. Right? You reacted, you did things. But what did the university lose by putting you in exile for those 2 years? Quite a bit. It's quite a bit.
Yeah. A lot of lost creativity. But so the point is that we're quick to pretend as if people aren't human, particularly when they're in their low moments. But somehow they become superhuman when they're at their highest, particularly when they have fame like this. I mean, look at Mel Gibson. How's that dude still running around?
Look, because you can't take his freedom.
Yeah, that's a perfect setup. A perfect setup. And I'm not. I mean, look, man. I say that not because I'm judging it, right? It's that some things are so egregious that, hey, look, man, you can't come around anymore. You got to go until you redeem yourself. Well, I mean, it's meta because I haven't watched it, but apparently Mel was doing an interview like a couple days later, and somebody brought it up, and they had to cut the newscast. I don't know why.
I don't remember exactly what was said, but I think it was something along the lines of he just said he didn't want to comment on this and just said like, the interview's over, right? And hey, fair enough. Like I everyone has their own quirks. They all have their own preferences. I feel like you're one of the most non-judgmental people. Like you take people truly as they are. And which is difficult because most people tend to want more people around them that are like them.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you an example, a counter example that I love, dude. I love Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson as a human being because of his redemption, not because of what he was. As probably the best heavyweight boxer of all time, all that stuff. I don't care about any of that. Even though
Muhammad Ali.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
Even Mike Tyson says it's Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, no, fair.
But you know what's funny? Mike Tyson doesn't say Floyd Mayweather is even in the top 10.
Yeah, well. But I don't know if you ever saw this. When Mike was doing his spoken word tour, he and his PR handler were on, I think it was in Toronto, a morning news show. And the dude provoked him and brought up what it was like to be a rapist. And you've been around people, man. You've been around people when they get angry. And you could tell instantly the way Mike's breathing changed, that adrenaline was flowing. And without missing a beat, he just said, you know what, man, you're a rat piece of shit. and left it. It was beautiful, man. Beautiful, because he spoke truth to power. I love it.
You know, recently, for those who don't mean, speaking about Mike Tyson, because I actually do think Mike Tyson is been on, he's much more of on that redemption aspect. He's much more chill, and he talks about it very openly, which is very vulnerable, takes a lot of courage, and shows true leadership in many ways. But he was recently at like a comedy club or something like that, and someone came up to him trying to like pick a fight. Dude pulls a gun on him, doesn't really react. Things wind up winding out. Eventually, like, Mike kind of somehow talks him down, gives the guy a hug. And the police are called, but he's like, I didn't press charges. I'm like, I'm not doing it. But dude, how stone cold killer like is that? Dude pulls a gun on you and he doesn't flinch.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I mean, that to me is okay. I mean, that is samurai. Like you talk, all right. It does not matter how much of a powerful fighter you are. You don't win against a gun when you're unarmed.
Right.
Right. This isn't the movies where you get to do all. Right? It doesn't happen. Dude's got a gun. Mike doesn't flinch. He talks the guy down. He uses some emotional intelligence. Let's say he uses his emotions with situational awareness, which he couldn't do if he had a below average IQ, which is what I try to tell people. Below average people IQ, you can't be, you're not able, like, which is again different topic of a different day. But dude, like the guy pulled a gun on him.
Well, when you understand that a lot of aggression comes from a place of weakness, not strength, that's why de-escalation, in most cases, unless somebody has some type of pathology, right? Like they're clinical, they're gonna probably react well to it. There's been some studies in some of the areas where police presence was kind of drawn back for like mental health crises calls, and instead they sent like an EMT with a crisis counselor, and it's far more effective for everybody. There's less trauma, it's less expensive overall for the city. There's all kinds of benefits to it, and I think that's something that gets left out of a lot of corporate leadership structure. It is people are human, man. People are human, and I'm not saying you have to have infinite grace. I'm not saying some people aren't. Some people aren't redeemable because some people don't want to be redeemed, and that's a personal choice. You have to recognize that. Some people are pathological. It's about 1 in 10, right? But most people, generally speaking, want to do good. They want to eat, and they want to get home and see their family. And when you understand those incentive systems and the things that can go wrong that prevent that drive people to make impulsive bad decisions like Will Smith, it doesn't excuse it. I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, especially legally, right? But that's out of my hands. But it's human, man. It's just humans.
So let's bring this back to Google for a moment, which they're not the only people that are in this boat. Apple.
Yeah, that's another big one.
Right? Tim Cook's like, hey, all you people are going to be back in the office. They didn't show back up in the office.
Right. I mean, because imagine that, man. People, and I'll get on the soapbox for a second. Part of it too. I personally have never worked at Google or Apple. I've been at big companies. I've been at really small companies. And what I have a sense this is rooted in is the need to control the cult, especially around these big brands. And it's a fucking cult. And if the cult followers aren't showing up, the cult leader doesn't have any power. And you can fan that out into all kinds of different factors, right? Down to the real estate that they've invested in, and now it's empty. But surprise, when you make it easier to get your work done for most people, you make it easier to get your food, and you make it easier to see your family. People enjoy life more. They're happier, and they don't want to go back to misery. Like, imagine that, dude. Surprise.
Well, I mean, this gets right back into what we've talked about several times. If you want to get ultimate control, ultimate power, give it all away. Give it away. I mean, the Dalai Lama has said this. It is ingrained into so many things of leadership. If you choose to provide your people with accountability and responsibility, they will actually act accordingly. It is when you choose to micromanage these people and you say, I'm going to hold you accountable, but the responsibility I am going to take away. I'm not going to allow you to choose where you're going to work. I'm going to be responsible for where you work, how you work, but I'm going to hold you accountable for these deadlines, which are arbitrary in most cases. They're
Right.
arbitrary deadlines.
Right.
And yet, these are the companies that people want to look to. Let me tell you, I mean, I love Google products. I love what Google's doing for the most parts. This is a really, really bad thing that Google's doing. Somewhat. And I'll say somewhat in that, well, the media makes mountains out of molehills all the time.
Right.
Google's a pretty damn big company. You think everyone in Google is working in Silicon Valley?
No.
I would be willing to bet majority of Google employees, overwhelming majority of Google employees, don't work in California.
Yeah, for sure. See, this is the thing too. Is sometimes we allow.
So they're not being genuine.
No, of course not, dude. And to be fair, it's the media not being genuine, right? I want to make sure that's clear. See, sometimes though we allow ourselves, because we're not that far removed from it, to get trapped into this 20th century, 19th century factory mindset where I'm going to create the rules and you're all going to mold into it, rather than, to your point about like the demographics, because the way we grew up, right? And those that are a generation or two below us. Well, I had this conversation with an engineer that's a colleague of mine the other day. We were setting up Jira, right? And he was like, "Oh, I think we need to set up A, B, and C, and then everybody needs to use it this way." And I said, "Hey, wait a minute, man. Let's go about this a different way. Let's do a little social experiment. How about this?
How about some A/B testing?
Yeah, why don't you and I right now on this call? We're in a meeting, working. We're having a good time right now. Why don't you and I create two real issues, so things we have to do that we want to track over this Kanban backlog system without any structure, and let's just use it and let our use of it dictate how to set the rules up, as long as they seem reasonable. And you judge mine, and I'll judge yours, and we'll meet in the middle." And that's what we did. And guess what? It fucking works perfectly. We had to tweak it. We had to make some modifications. We had to have some debate and consensus and concession back and forth. And then we brought the rest of the team in, 3, 4 other people, and said, "Look, here's what we did. These are the results. Do you think you can use it this way? If not, what do you think? How do you think it should change?" We made a couple more tweaks, and fuck it, boom, we're off to the races.
Innovation at its best.
That's right, man.
Positive conflict.
Yeah, right. Like, once we agree we need to do this thing, that doesn't mean you have to start by defining all the rules before you've actually used it. Like, why don't you use it first and be a little organic about it? Like, we're smart people. We can figure it out.
Many people, most people, are fearful of the fail.
That's a big problem.
And I think this is where, I mean, there's no secret. I'm leaning more and more towards businesses that are I would say maybe 5,000 and below, I think after 5,000, to me, like, you start to be that you're no longer like you're closer to a big business at that point. And those businesses that are under 5,000, you have a much greater impact on the communities in which you serve than you do if you're greater than that, because you start to become too much beholden to the stock price, which, not that there's anything wrong with being beholden to the stock price. I think there's just a better way of doing business. Better way of doing business is having that unique blend of contributing to the communities in which you are serving your services and products, and delivering to those that invested in you. When you get beyond that, tends to steer much more towards the stockholders. There's 100%. There are plenty of businesses that's not true. Until Elon Musk invests in you like Twitter.
I wondered if you're going to bring it up.
You know, I gotta say, I clown on Elon Musk a lot. But I have always said he's a savvy business person. I don't like how he likes to portray himself as being this super genius. I don't think that's true. I think it's a persona. Is he smart? Yeah. I think he's financially smart. And I will also say, I actually believe he's a principled person. I don't think I think he definitely has his principles. I don't think he goes against them. So I take that for him as well. I have this one piece, but I got to say, buying that portion of Twitter out, it was pretty. That was like, that's a baller, and he does it, dude. The next day, he's now a board member.
Yeah, and he's already been posting tweets to get people's feedback on what features they want to add, like the ability to edit.
He is the number one stockholder in the company.
Yeah, he's the majority shareholder.
So for those who don't understand that, so check this out. I think it was, and someone can fact check this, so my numbers might be a little bit off. 24 hours after he announces this, the valuation goes up by $10 billion. Right. You know what I'm sitting here thinking right now? Why the hell didn't I invest in some Twitter as soon as he announced that shit? I didn't think that would happen. I thought it was going to have a negative reaction. It didn't. Now, this is where I go. Like, look, I mean, I've always said, like, look, Tesla, I thought was a horrible idea. I still think it's a horrible idea. It did get some companies moving in the direction of that. I don't think it's still in the right direction. I think hydrogen is the better way to go. I've said that for a little while now, and Toyota and Honda tend to agree since they're doubling down on that kind of stuff. But hey, it's a move, right? Maybe this needs to be a leapfrog aspect. Great. But I've always said SpaceX was a very interesting company for him, because what it does, it is, at least for the first time that I can remember or see, and I can't think of I can think of a couple companies now that I'm thinking about it, but one of the first ones that came to mind when you employ first principles design thinking, which is, in this case, hey, let's take what we know about building a rocket and let's build it based on what we know today, not iterate based on the Apollos. Now, as I was thinking, or as I was stating this, I thought there was one other out there, but I will rectify that slightly. And I would say it was going to be Netflix. But Netflix actually came to this decision iteratively. Faster. They iterated faster.
Mm-hmm.
And faster than a lot of other companies. I mean, can you imagine? You go back a little bit of ways. I mean, one right now, I mean, prior to Netflix, Blockbuster was the number one company in that space. They had the opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million. There's now one Blockbuster store.
Yeah, like in Podunk, Alaska or some shit, right?
Yeah, I think it's actually like in Oregon or something like that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's basically who cares.
Yeah. Well, and is a final thought for me. Think about this, man. Netflix started as a mail only Blockbuster equivalent, right? You mail around physical discs. And I actually don't remember the swap over to streaming. That's how fast they switched over to it. Like I just remember, oh, Netflix is a streaming company now. And it's like they never had physical discs ever. It didn't exist. To the point where most people now in the younger generation, like our older kids, have no idea that they actually had DVDs.
Dude, it was only a couple of years.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, but I distinctly remember, they started with having different plans based on how many DVDs you wanted out at a time and all that jazz. And they changed so fast that it's like that part never existed.
The best part to me about Netflix back in those days was not so much the movies, it was the games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That to me was, because I mean, look, I mean, there's, I mean, I while I enjoy video games, I don't have as much time to invest. And actually, I got to say, as we've spoken about, and we both have a love for some of the MMORPGs, I don't have that time to invest in a game like that anymore.
No.
As much as I enjoyed it. So now I'll do things that are low investment that I can just have a mental break. So when I go back to like that Netflix and the gaming piece was perfect. How often am I going to play Madden football? Until I've literally beat every single piece. I'm only going to spend whatever it was back in the day, $5 instead of 50. That same time I spent $50, I literally had like 10 other games that I'm no longer playing.
Right.
It's great for Netflix because they're getting $5 a month no matter what, or whatever. I don't remember what the prices were, but brilliant on their part.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is I don't know what happened to that part of their, like, that's gone.
I was just thinking about this the other day, man. I recall there being, I'm not going to call it an add-on service, but I think you can stream games through Netflix somehow. I remember seeing something about that because Mrs. Pittman said something to me about it. I'm like, bro,
Where are you going to stream it to?
So Google has Stadia, which works that way. You're essentially playing the game in their cloud infrastructure. And it's
yeah. Well, all right. So you have to have a different console, like a PC, something like that, because you're not. I don't think you're streaming that to like the PlayStation or Xbox.
Correct. My understanding is it's like on a PC. Yeah.
Okay.
Or now the big.
So it's basically a Steam replacement.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I've never used it, and I remember her showing it to me, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I kind of forgot they even had like the GameFly type integration at some point, but yeah, bro, it's a choice. I don't want to because I have other things I want to do. When those are done, maybe I'll play a little bit, but until they're done, I ain't playing.
Dude, I got to say, like, it's been very interesting as to how rapidly we both went from we enjoy playing some games, like well into being an adult, well into being a professional, well into being a parent. And that has been like, yeah, if I just need a little bit of stress relief, I might do this. But otherwise, eh.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe when I take a vacation, that'll change. I'm just not in a place where I want to take a vacation. I don't need to. And I have plenty of things to do to keep me occupied. And the big thing for me too, man, is I learned I learned how to manage my life much better so that my day-to-day stress level is like exceptionally low. My average day is exceptionally low stress.
Well, I got to tell you, my stress level overall just got a lot lower as of today.
What's that?
All right. So check this out. I didn't know this with where I'm currently at, but each of the officers of the company and board members have something like I won't say a very high level of personal liability insurance against them. This is why this matters.
Okay.
The amount of companies that are being sued due to breaches, they are suing officers of the companies personally. And I'm like, I'm advising my board on many different things with the other officers. I'm like, look, I mean, I feel like, hey, we are not good. Like I tell them all the time, we are not good. The goal is 30 days identification that we have been breached. And then let's close the threat window. Like, oh, that's too long. I'm like, well, the industry average is like 190 some days. So 30 days is like an unrealistic goal in a way, but it's still the goal. So I'm like, oh, I've got that much insurance? Well, I would if there's no way possible that with the amount of insurance that anyone could claim that in the event there's a breach at the organization where I'm at, that they would have anywhere close to that amount of damages. It would be, it's not mathematically possible. I literally did the equation in my head when I was talking to my CEO about it. I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah. All right. That helps me in making risk-based decisions. Because otherwise, I'm like, all right, I got to be significantly more adverse. But now I'm like, okay, you want to do this? I'll tell you this. I'll write some report. I don't need to fight on it. Go do it. We're going to get breached, but that's fine. I mean,
and this goes back to where we started and what we talked about with work from home. Because I'm 100% work from home now. Not that High Point was far to drive to, but I still had to drive, right? My risk of crashing goes up or somebody crashing into me. That's stressful. And I didn't have a bad commute. It wasn't like I'm dealing with LA traffic.
Dude, why didn't you just ride your bicycle?
I did once in a while. I did.
You should have been able to ride it like 10 months of the year.
Not here, dude. Not here. I thought that in the beginning, and then I realized it just randomly rains.
Look, you can ride in the rain.
The chances of crashes go way up. No thanks.
But you're able to ride in the rain.
You could choose to. I chose not to. Because I also choose not to crash. That's why I love racing inside now. I think I said that a couple weeks ago. Don't have to worry about crashes. It's perfect. It's way less stress.
Dude, I get it. Well, my friend, as always, a pleasure. This will be interesting as I continue to play around with these different mechanics here. I mean, I don't know if you can see from there or not that I've got another device right here. Can't tell. Maybe.
There you go.
But I'm able to control some stuff here. We'll see how that winds up going out. Hey, trying to evolve as I promised with the hey, I was going to do some more stuff with the studio, making some progress.
Oh, I mean, what's the worst case scenario? It doesn't work. So you try something different. Who cares?
Hey, I'm hoping that people will take some of the lessons that we've learned and portrayed out, and they'll stand on our shoulders and not make those same mistakes.
Yeah, I agree, man.
That's it. So with that, my friend, I hope you have a great day. Well, a great rest of your evening, a great rest of your week, and see you sometime next week.
Yeah, I know I owe you an email with some dates and times, so I haven't forgotten.
I know you didn't. Not, I don't have to micromanage you.
Yeah, usually not.
All right, my friend, have a good one. Take care.
You too. Always a pleasure. Bye, everybody.
See you. Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it. Please subscribe. If you have any comments, please leave them in there. My guests and I are very interactive. Well, we want to be better, and hopefully you got something out of this. Until next time, take care. Thank you.